Hello, CMU students, and welcome back to another episode of Nitty Gritty. I am your host, Justin Platt, and today I've got another very special guest, Kasia Kucera, the editor-in-chief of Horizon Magazine. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Super happy to be doing this interview. I know that Horizon Magazine is very, very cool and very unique. How would you say that it differentiates from other magazines?
Well, this one's really cool because it's all student run, of course, which is really nice because, the quality of work that comes out of it is very professional. We've actually had somebody from Denver pick something up from an actual company in business, and she emailed us telling us that we've done such a good job with the photos, the stories, the design through it, that it's just really cool that, we can produce something so professional by just a bunch of students just trying to figure something out, Because even with the graphic design program, we really don't know how to do layout stuff. We don't really get taught that, so it's very rare to find somebody who knows how to do a whole layout and design of the magazine.
Well, hot damn, that's pretty cool. That's a really cool achievement. What would you say is the best part of Horizon Magazine in terms of content?
I would definitely say probably the stories and the art and the creativity that comes from it, because a lot of it is based on a lot of personal experiences. It's very personal for around town, around the Grand Valley and everything too, that a lot of the heart and soul of the CMU students get to go put into it. And you can see it. You can see all the hard work, all the love or the passion that comes through it, especially with this new edition coming out next week, actually. You can see there's a lot of personal stuff that's coming out throughout it too, because this has been a very hard semester and I wanted it to represent that. And that's the cool thing, is that we get to kind of choose what we do with it.
Well, you kind of alluded to it.
Yeah.
You guys have a new edition coming out.
Yep.
Is there anything you can tell us about this upcoming edition that's coming out next week?
Well, one of my favorite parts of it is that we have a two-page confession one. That's kind of interesting. You get to hear some of the very interesting confessions that people have around campus. That's kind of happened here and there, and we've had a personal story. Also, we do have a pretty cool feature about the fires that have been happening, and we have a lot of really cool photography, like a feature for it too. That's going to be really fun to look through.
Is there a certain theme that you guys have for this one?
So the theme of the magazine is the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the reason why I chose that is because, there is a lot of bad and ugly that's happening right now. 2020 has been just absolutely insane, but I don't want to stay away from all the good stuff. I want to be like, hey, there's also good things happening too, but we can't avoid or ignore the bad and ugly in the world too. There's always going to be that balance of knowing, like, yeah, there are some positives even when there's within the bad, but we have to be able to embrace the bad too.
I could not agree more. I think it's a really cool idea to kind of embrace the light in the darkness and find a positive out of such a negative that's kind of 2020 overall.
Yeah.
Speaking of kind of 2020, how have you guys been able to adjust in this kind of COVID season?
Well, it was really difficult, honestly, because it's not like the type of thing, like, this is my first year as editor-in-chief, and I think I found out I'm one of the younger ones too, so there's a lot of learning that I've had to deal with, and I can't just go ask the other editor-in-chief, be like, hey, what did you do to handle the magazine during the middle of a pandemic? You don't have that reference of help at all. And so a lot of it's just like making sure we accommodated for having enough room, because sometimes we have a lot of contributors all in the same spot, so we had to do a classroom, like stay in a classroom in Escalante instead of our normal room, which kind of threw me off a lot, honestly, because I've been so used to that. And luckily, we were able to still kind of do a lot of in-person stuff, because I feel like if we went over Zoom, it would have kind of fallen apart.
Bueno.
Yeah, exactly. But we did have to make up a lot of work, because a lot of people had a really hard time to be able to finish writing stories, which is understandable. A lot of mental health stuff came up, so there's a lot of having to compromise and change things on the spot and come up with new things. So it's been kind of difficult, honestly. I've learned my lessons, and hopefully, like, we can keep it up by trying to get more people involved and maybe trying to do a little bit more remote type stuff. But I mean, that was the biggest change that happened, was just changing classrooms and everything too. But it's just the lack of contributors made it really hard.
Totally fair. Overcoming and adapting has definitely been a theme this year.
Yeah.
You talked about it. I mean, it's your first year as editor-in-chief. What are some of your responsibilities for the magazine?
Well, the biggest thing is like before even the semester starts, I come up with a lot of story ideas, come up with an overall theme, even if we really want to have one, but overall it's easier to, do something with a theme. And, there's the hiring process of hiring my team too, which I'm going to have to redo this semester. And, dealing with a lot of budget, I have to make sure that everything gets sent to print on time. I have to deal with the printing company, which is was intimidating at first because, they're very professional and everything too. And I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And that means, dealing with how many pages we want, dealing with knowing like what type of paper we're using, what we're going to do with the cover and everything too. I have to preview the magazine, making sure that everybody does their job, making sure everybody's hitting their due dates, making sure it just comes together on time because it takes about a month to do the printing process. I have to do a lot of double checks. I have to edit, look through. I'm making up, I have to write a couple of stories to make up that, doing some illustrations, dealing with photography stuff. It's just all the extra help I can get just to make sure this gets produced. The budget thing was kind of weird and intimidating, especially the biannual year. That I have to be like, hey, everybody deserves raises because we work so hard. And, I had to convince the student house to be like, hey, can you let us do that? And it's just like a lot of really weird behind the scenes stuff with it. So it's quite a bit sometimes.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a lot. It sounds like you have a lot to do on your plate. You kind of alluded and talked about your team.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about some of the other positions that are on Horizon's board?
Yeah, so we have our managing editor who deals with the people who write, just kind of helping, making sure that the stories get edited, that they're getting their stuff in time, making sure we're hitting word count, and then we have our photographer editor who just helps people make sure photos are good, getting to choose which photos go in and editing the photos correctly for print, and then we have a social media director who's supposed to help and promote us, and then we also have a art director, and she does with design, the layout of the magazine. She does the most work by pretty much putting the whole magazine together, and she deals with illustrations and the actual design and layouts of pages. So she has a lot more work to do than the others, honestly, and she's the reason why we pretty much have a magazine. And then we also have a ad director who makes sure, we can get some ads for the magazine since we kind of get some profits from there to help us print because printing gets kind of expensive.
How many copies do you guys usually print?
So it kind of ranges. I've been doing about 700 copies now just because, we not as many people are on campus. A lot of people are online now, so there's no reason to have so many copies, because otherwise you're just going to be sitting in our office. But sometimes they've done about 1,000 with other ones, and yeah, it's a lot.
You said 700, and I went, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you went, that's not a lot. And I went, whoa. So, yeah, I like how you guys have kind of talked about the creative aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows in your work, because I understand from what you've talked about that illustrations and photography and visuals are very big in terms of a magazine, because that's kind of what separates it from a newspaper along with the creative aspect. Do you guys hire photographers? Do people come in and say, hey, I want to take photos for you? Or do people come and say, like, hey, I want to draw a design for the magazine? Or do you have specific people you go talk to for that?
Yeah, so the biggest part of it is that we have contributors, and that's like the lit review and also with the criterion, we have people that contribute. Sadly, we're not able to pay our people like the newspaper does, but ours is a little bit more of a relaxed time period anyways because we have about, a couple months to work on it and help create it, So since it's all student run, we can't really like have somebody come in and pay them, for something, but there are some people that I'm just like, I've seen their work before. I'm like, hey, your photography is phenomenal. I really love what you do. Can you come back and, help us, and they get the credit. And really the biggest thing about the magazine, it's like, it's a portfolio piece. Like, it makes you look good. Like, to be able to be like, hey, I got published in a professional magazine in college, and that's our biggest thing that gets people to be like, oh, I want to do stuff for you. Sometimes we'll have people come in and be like, to do like kind of rundowns, or maybe we'll have somebody who's professional and be like, doing like little lessons for other people if they want to, but it's been kind of hard to do that this year, since COVID is changing everything in our lives, so.
It's definitely been an adjustment. I like the idea of that helpful center that you have.
Yeah.
Do you have some sort of workshop, or is there any other events that you guys hold usually?
And like the workshops are usually for just the contributors that does that, but like we'll be there when like the events kind of depends on like what Student Life wants us to do, because they're like, every org needs to do an event, and I was kind of like, well, we're a magazine, there's not much I can really do that's fun. So I did a cornhole event, a little bit, and we'll usually have a launch party too, just to be like celebrating all of the hard work that went into it. And usually it's at the ale house, and we'll have the whole outside area where we can celebrate. We'll have a whole bunch of releases of the magazine that hasn't been taken out for the school yet. It's just like, it's kind of like an exclusive thing. Everybody's invited. Everybody has a fun time. We get to hang out. We had KMSA DJ for us last year, and that was a lot of fun doing that. And usually that's our biggest event. It's just a huge launch party, but sadly we weren't able to do it this semester because, I didn't want to make everybody be out in the cold anyways too. And since we just got into a stricter lockdown, it kind of just worked out that I didn't do it. But that's our biggest event.
Fair enough. There's been a lot of challenges this year, but
Yeah.
it's cool to see that even through everything, there's still a place where students can come and kind of express themselves through creative means. I think that's a very inspiring thing to be able to have on campus. If I want to get involved, what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I email? Is there a meeting you guys have?
Yeah. So usually we'll meet every Tuesday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And usually it's used to be in the Horizon room, and I'm going to try to do that next semester too. And in the beginning of every semester, we usually have a flyer that's all throughout all the bulletin boards, so people can do that. But the easiest way to contact us is through my email, my personal one, because I'll respond to that a lot quicker, because I'm trying to change some things up that's more efficient for the magazine. So I'm pretty sure that's like posted up on there, but it's going to be kasia614@gmail.com. And it's the type of thing, like, you could be there for the first couple weeks for the assignments that you get, and then we can contact you remotely and stuff too. And usually we start meeting on the second week of school in the beginning of the semester, and that's when we usually go off. But it's better if you're there in the beginning, because it's hard to be there in the middle of the semester, because we've already been working on a bunch of content and everything too. I mean, we can still accommodate to that, but if you want to write a story, it's a lot easier to be there in the beginning.
Is it something you're kind of locked into once you hop in? Like, if you're scheduled to write a story, you can't just kind of bail, right? It's something you have to put in time. And
Yes, you do. It's the type of thing, like, we tell them, like, do not overload yourself, because it gets busy, it gets kind of hard. We suggest about 1 or 2 stories, depending, like, if you're doing photography, that's a little bit easier to produce, more work and still at a high quality, while illustrations and layout and design takes a lot more time, because, like, if you bail on the story or anything else, you're affecting the people who did the illustrations for the story, people who did the photos, people who put all that work in, and, we don't want to cut that story. And, and you will get cut from the story if you are not writing in time, and that makes it harder for us, because we have to refill that position, and you're screwing over a lot of people. We're set to have so many pages, and if you don't do your work, it's just really hard on us, and it's kind of like disrespectful, in a way. We understand that stuff comes up, so if you can communicate sooner than later, that's the best. But otherwise, it's, we can't just be like, we can't do anything to you if you just bail out. But it's just kind of,
so you gotta be smart. You gotta be
exactly.
responsible and be respectful.
Yeah.
Which is what you should be. We're all adults now. We should be able to handle ourselves as such. If you commit to do something, you should stay committed to that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially with college. I'm gonna hold a lot of people to a higher standard in college, because we're adults. We have we're handling a lot of stuff, and if you can't communicate or do anything like that too, it's just kind of frustrating with that. So.
Horizon Magazine, holding people to higher standards, putting out the best possible content you can get, allowing students to be creative. Kasia, thank you so much for coming on the show, coming on Nitty Gritty. Thank you for talking to us about Horizon, and just telling students ways that you can kind of contribute positive energy in such a dark and ominous time. Thank you for everything that you do as editor-in-chief. Good luck to you, and hopefully your magazine comes out flawless and beautiful, and you guys are able to kind of go forward and continue this role that you guys have been on, just like producing content.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm Justin Platt. Kasia, we'll see you next time on Nitty Gritty.